I'm back. All right, so guys, there's so much in the book of First Corinthians chapter 7. And that's where we're at today. But it's 40 verses. I ain't doing 40 verses. If I did 40 verses, I'll probably drop dead because I'll be talking for like 4 or 6 hours, maybe even longer. Like my outline was way too long. So I split it up in different sections and different uh you guys know what I'm saying. I split up my outline to do a whole series of the book of First Corinthians chapter 7. But today, right now in this video, I'm doing First Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1 through 2. All right. So I'm just starting off with two verses to start off the whole series, the first two verses. But I did something else before. So y'all watched that video before. I'll make sure to add a card on my YouTube channel, Upload Past Crossroads. That's where I'm live from right now. All right. So let's just go ahead and get into it. First Corinthians chapter 7 verse 1. All right, so I'm going to start reading. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 1. Now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. So in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, what I'm learning in the whole book of 1 Corinthians, it's just a whole entire book of Paul answering questions that the Corinthian church has, or addressing issues that he's heard from the Corinthian church and he's addressing, right? So this was a question that the Corinthian church had that they gave to Paul, and they said, and it wasn't even a question. It was really something that they thought and believed, and Paul was addressing this. And that's so powerful because I said this, I think in First Corinthians chapter 1. I don't remember what. I'll make sure to add a card. I gotta look to see which Bible study I did in. I'm doing a whole Bible study on the book of First Corinthians with some of my friends, and that Bible study is so powerful. You can check that on my YouTube channel, Upload Past Crossroads as well. But yeah, with First Corinthians 7, what was I finna say? Oh yeah, so it's just a whole entire book that Paul wrote, addressing the questions, and that's what I was going to say. So Paul never does not address something. Like he always confronts what needs to be confronted. He always uh, says what the elephant in the room is. And as a Christian, do you do that? Do you call out sin when it is a sin? Do you say foul when it's a foul? I'm just kidding. But no, like do you as a Christian, like do you open your mouth and are you verbal about what the word of God says? And Paul is verbal and he addresses everything that the Corinthian church is going through. It's First Corinthians chapter 5. For example, in First Corinthians chapter 5, there was a, a boy, a man who married his father's wife and was living with her and having sex with her. No, he wasn't even married to her. He was having sex with her, but the Corinthian church accepted him into the congregation and her. And Paul was saying, "What is wrong with you guys? Like, this is making all Christians look bad. This is making the Corinthian church look bad. This person is doing something that not even the Corinthians think is right." So the Corinthian, the Gentiles, the everybody else that aren't believers, that don't believe in Christ, even they think that's jacked up. That a man was having sex with his wife's, his husband's, no, a man was having sex with his father's wife. Like they even thought that was messed up. And as a Christian, you can't do stuff like that. You can't do stuff worse than the world does and call yourself a Christian. Are you crazy? And then what does that look like as the body, as for all believers? How will everybody look at Christians if one person does something like that and we accept them and are tolerant? You know what I mean? It's like having Hitler as a friend and he kills all races but loves you and you eating dinner with him. What does that say to everybody? Yeah, so anyways, so now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Let's go to verse 2. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. So it is good for a man not to touch a woman. So the Corinthian church, I guess, and commentators and preachers, everybody alike, they all say that the Corinthian church, yeah, they thought it was good not to touch a woman, which means not to have sex with them at all, right? So it's good not to have sex with a man or a woman, right? That's how the Corinthian church thought because all the sexual immorality that was going on in the Corinth area. So in Corinth, this Gentile pagan world. We talked about it in all in throughout the whole book of First Corinthians that Corinth is a place where uh, it's hot. Like a lot of cultures are there, a lot of races, and it's just a lot going on. It's popping off, right? And then it's by a seaport. You know how it is by a seaport, so a lot of merchants, a lot of travelers, a lot of stuff like that. So a lot of stuff trading going on and stuff like that, right? Then not to mention when you go to Corinth, man, it's a lot of pagan worship stuff you can do. So like there's a lot of people who have a lot of different religions and they worship different gods. They the more back in that time period, the more gods that you have, the more power you got. That's what they thought. So, they got all these gods, so people come to Corinth for that, right? But then you got the Corinthian church. And yeah, so they were in the heart of like just all idols, right? So they could worship any gods that they wanted. And then they had like this one god that they would have sex with prostitutes, and husbands would have sex with prostitutes if their wives weren't fulfilling them, but some of them just did it anyways. And so like their whole entire view of just sex was off. Like they were like, man, sex is not godly. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you can see how that could come about. And even in today's time period, you got so I think Catholics, priests, a lot of Catholic priests are celibate and they don't think it's good to get married. You got nuns like that too. So some people think that being celibate makes you better than other people. It makes you holier than other people. And granted, hey, I was celibate until I was 26 years old, and that's crazy in today's time period. So, um, yeah, like celibate, man. Like, so no sex before marriage, right? So it's good not to touch a woman. Yeah, it is good not to touch a woman, but that's only if you're not married, right? But if you're married, that's not good. So the Corinthian church was saying to Paul that they thought it was good not to touch a woman even in marriage. Like maybe we should just leave our wives, our husbands, because we're saved now. So maybe we should just get rid of them and just be celibate because that's holier than being married and having sex. That's wrong. And some people actually think like this. I'm happy we're talking about this. Hey guys, so sex, man, like sex is a bad thing to some people, especially the church in today's time period. Let's talk about today's time period. Some people think that sex is a bad thing. Don't do sex. That's all you ever hear. Don't do sex. Sex is bad. Hey, I was a virgin for 26 years for a reason. I heard that a lot. But like sex is amazing. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. But you can't have it in the way that you want it. You got to have it the way that God intended it, right? There's just certain things you can't do your way because it won't work out in the way that you think it will. You only end up in your own schemes and your own hurting yourself and selling yourself short and putting yourself in places that you could have prohibited and not have ever been in if you just would have did things God's way. You guys get what I'm saying? So what happens when you're disobedient and you don't do things God's way? So you guys, yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's good for a man not to touch a woman. Yeah, in an instance that is not in marriage. But if you're married, nevertheless, that's what Paul says. So nevertheless, to avoid fornication, so to avoid, you know, having sex with anybody, right? And that fornication means a lot of stuff. Let's look up what fornication means. Let's just talk about this. Just in case anybody got any questions, let's just get this all out. So fornication, sexual intercourse between people not married to each other. So infidelity, adultery, extramarital relations, uh, sexual intercourse, sexual relations. Oh, that means oral sex. Uh, yeah, man. Unfaithfulness. All right, yeah, we get it. That's what fornication is, right? So, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife and let every woman have her own husband. That is so powerful, guys. Because one thing I learned in the book of First Corinthians, chapter 7, like again, I said to you guys in the video before this, go ahead and watch that. In the video, yeah. I said in the video before this, I don't even remember what I said. Oh yeah, I said that you know, if I ever, when I become a pastor and do marital counseling and all that stuff and do marriages and stuff, I always tell the couple, you need to listen to as many sermons, as many Bible studies, be in as many Bible studies, and just read the Bible on everything that it has to say about marriage, divorce, uh, remarriage, all that stuff, because you need to know before you get into it. And the biggest thing I learned is marriage is for sex, and sex is for marriage, right? And that's just one of the many plethora of things of what marriage is for. Marriage is for a lot of reasons, right? But the whole idea is, Paul's going to talk about it in 1 Corinthians 7, that some people are called for marriage and some people aren't. Some people have the gift of marriage, it's a gift. And some people have the gift of being single. So, guys, if you don't care to be married, it's okay to be single. But if you're going to be single, you got to be celibate, right? And if you're married, then you're supposed to be having sex with your spouse, like, right? And so, yeah, man. So sex is for marriage, and marriage is for sex. Sex equals marriage, and marriage equals sex. Like, you guys know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. Like, the body was not made to fulfill every lust that it desires. You know, so like we all lust after things, but just because you lust after something doesn't mean you need it, right? And so we did a study on 1 Corinthians chapter 6, and I wish I would have went verse by verse and talk about it like I'm doing with 1 Corinthians 7, but I gotta do it some other time because I just don't have the time. We're going to 1 Corinthians 8 next week. But anyways, in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 13, it says, meats for the belly, belly for meats, but God shall destroy both it and them. Now, the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. This is so powerful, guys. Did you hear that, man? Like your belly was meant for meat, and meat was meant for your belly. That's what God intended for food to be, and for your stomach to be for, right? So your body is not meant for sin. Your body is not meant for fornication. Your body was meant for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. Guys, our life is all about full devotion to God. And anything that takes that distracts us and keeps us from serving the Lord and being with God and doing what He called us to do ain't of the Lord, right? This is the Bible. This is not my opinion. I'm literally reading the verses to you guys. You see that? So don't try to come for me saying, "Oh man, I saw the Dr. J." Like, no, this ain't my opinion. If I had it my way, I would sin too. I have sex with everything too. I will, man. I wish I could, but that's not God's way. God's way is for us to serve Him. We're called to be fully devoted for Him. And it said that also. Paul also says that in 1 Corinthians 7 and 1 Corinthians 6 in the previous chapter. He says, you know what? No, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20, it says, what? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? In verse 20 of 1 Corinthians 6, for ye are not bought with a price. For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. You belong to God. Your whole spirit, your whole being, everything that's you belongs to God. It says that also in the same chapter we're on right now, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 23. Ye are bought with the price. Be ye not servants of men. Like, you're not here to serve and do what you want to do. That's what servants of men means. Like, you're not here to call the shots for your life. God already done called it. You're called to follow it and obey it and do exactly what he said to do. Why? Because your body's meant for the Lord and the Lord for the body. You'll never have peace. You'll never have satisfaction. You'll never feel like you're doing anything bigger than yourself, which is purpose. You'll never have any of that satisfaction if you're not surrendering your life to God and surrendering yourself to Him. And there's so many verses like that, right? But going back to sexual immorality, like, sex is not a gift outside of marriage, right? It feels good. It's nice, but that's not what God intended it to be, right? So you'll never get the complete and full benefit of sex in marriage, sex in marriage, until you do it sex in marriage. You know what I mean? And you do sex with your wife, right? And your husband, right? So you guys know what I'm saying. So it's not something God doesn't want you to, commit sin in order to get what He wants for you, right? It's not God's will for you to have sexual immorality, you know? So, and to elaborate on that too, man, so many verses that relate to the first two verses that we read. Like everything comes together in First Corinthians 7. Everything comes back on one another. So that's why I'm splitting it up to eventually say everything. But like in First Corinthians 7, verse 7, let's go ahead and read that. It says, for Paul said, for I would that all men were even as myself. What is Paul? He's single, right? And a lot of commentators don't know why he's single. Don't even know if he was ever married, but most people say he had to have been married because he was in the Sanhedrin. And if you're in the same, you remember he persecuted Christians for a living, right? Before he was saved, he was with the religious leaders. He was with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all of them. But they say he was in the Sanhedrin, and in order to be in the Sanhedrin, um, he had to have been married because in this time period they looked down at people who were single, right? Just like in today's time period, but way worse. Like if you were single in this religious culture, in this religious dynamic, then they looked at you like you were a leper, like you were a murderer, like you were just a scum of the earth, like something's wrong with you and you're a sinner and you're bound for hell because like you can be married. So you need to be married to just experience, it's not good for a man to be alone. That's what Genesis 2:18 says. I think it's 2:18. But yeah, that's where they got that from. Like, it's not good for a man to be alone. So it's a sin. So you shouldn't be alone. And that's how some people think in today's time period, just talking. One thing I even struggle with it. Like if I see a really pretty woman, like a MILF is a mom I want to, you guys know. So yeah, so if I see like a really hot woman and they're like 40 or 50, I don't understand why and how in the world they're singles, even 30-year-olds. Like, but now I'm getting up there, so it just makes no sense, right? But like some God calls some people to be single, right? So yeah, let's talk about verse 7, man. So for I would have that all men were even as myself. So Paul's saying they should be single like me. Also talking about Paul too. Uh People say when he became a Christian, his wife probably left him, or because he was a Christian and serving Christ instead of, the Judaism and all that stuff. Um, or they said that his wife died, but nobody knows. It's not in the Bible, so we can only guess and wait until we get to heaven to figure out. So yeah, all right, I'm good with that now. So verse 7, for I would have that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner, another after that. So guys, being married is a gift, sex is a gift, but sinning to get these gifts is not a blessing. It is not good at all, right? So I just want to throw that out there. This is just some stuff I've been learning with First Corinthians 7. Some of the stuff I already knew, but I hope it's blessing you guys as well. But yeah, it's Satan's strategy for all of us it's Satan's strategy to encourage sex outside of marriage. He doesn't want you to get the full benefits of sex, right? And it's Satan also his motive to discourage sex in marriage. How many marriages don't are lacking in sex? You know what I mean? Satan's winning. Like either way he can get you with just not utilizing sex the way that God intended it to be. He wants to get you. And you want to know why you got so much complications, how you can't find a man, you can't find a woman, because you're trying to sleep with everything. Because that's all you letting your dick lead your life, you letting your vagina lead your life. You always opening your legs to any and everything. That's why you don't have nothing, right? That's why you can't keep nothing, because you allow that to dictate your life. There's way more to life than sex, guys. Like, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. That part is so powerful. And they're right in the sense that you can't touch everything and get everything, right? Oh, that's a bad way of saying it. But, it's good for a man not to touch a woman, right? It's good for a man not to touch a woman, right? So, touching can lead to other things. If we're just talking about touching, right? Like, that's how I lost my virginity. Long story short, uh, Wednesday, I think January 2nd. I know it's January 2nd, 2019. Yeah, 2019. That's when I lost my virginity. And it's because I kept on touching the girl. I kept on touching her, and it just led to sex. And I really didn't want it. I told her, like, I'm trying to keep my virginity. She didn't listen to me. So I guess I was raped. I don't know. But I should have just fled and not even put myself in that position. But it's good for a man not to touch a woman, guys. Like touching can lead to things. Touching can lead to places and lead you, you know, down paths God never intended for you guys. You know, a lot of people because of sex get married. A lot of people because of sex get hurt in relationship and get and because they're led to be in relationships that they would have never put themselves in if they never had sex with that person. You guys know what I'm saying? Sex complicates stuff. And God ain't a God of complication. He ain't a God of confusion. This is Bible verses, guys, right? So if God's not a God of confusion and complication, why are you trying to complicate things, by doing things he never intended you to do, right? So nothing's wrong with sex, guys. Like a lot of the way the church talks about it sometimes, it can make everybody feel like that. Nothing's wrong with sex. Everything's right with sex. But it has to be used in the way that God intended it to be used in order to get the benefits that He intended all of us to get. If we have the gift of being married and we have the gift of giving sex in marriage, right? So yeah, man. So whether you're in a married state or unmarried state, it's a gift, right? So and I know how it feels, guys, to be unmarried and to wait to have sex until marriage. It's hard. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Like I tried, guys. I tried so hard to wait until marriage, until I got married to have sex. And when I had to hit 26, it's just too hard, right? And that's what verse 8 through 9 says. I say, therefore, to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide, even as I. So again, Paul's saying it's good for them to be single, to be celibate, to just focus on serving the Lord. He's going to talk about all this, later throughout the whole entire chapter of 1 Corinthians 7. I got to make sure my laptop get on charger because it's dying. But okay. All right, so let's go to verse 9, but 1 Corinthians chapter 7. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. Guys, if you have a passion for sex and you have a passion to just express love to the opposite sex, like marriage is the thing for you, man. So and the longer you don't marry, the longer it's a problem because you start burning with a passion, right? And the passion gets worse. Like I know how it is because like I have the gift of being married and I have just so much love to give to my spouse, right? I have so much passion to show her, for the woman's body, everything like that. You guys use your imagination. And so if I don't get married, that burning passion will drive me crazy and will lead me down roads, down avenues, down places I shouldn't be in because I need to be married and I need to be giving my love to my spouse instead of to pigs who don't know what to do with precious pearls, which is me, right? So you guys get what I'm saying, guys. Like Jesus said, don't give precious pearls to a pig. You want to do that because they'll just wallow in it, right? So if they're not my wife, they're not called to be my wife. They're a pig. Like they're not gonna love me and treat me in the way that I deserve to be treated. Same for you guys. Like you can't just. You guys get what I'm saying. It's good for a person not to touch another person if that person is not your spouse. You guys get what I'm saying? So yeah, man. All this comes together, but yeah, no one's gifted for sexual immorality, right? Nobody's gifted to sin. Sometimes sin can seem like a gift at the time when it's done, but there's ramifications, there's consequences for sin, man. So, yeah, we must be faithful in every season that God's called us in. So, I know it's hard to be celibate and to wait until marriage for sex. And then if you're married, it's hard to just, you wish you were single. You wish you could, be free and do what you want to do. I understand. I know both sides, right? There's a passion burning inside you. But whatever it is, man, it's a gift that God has given you that He knows you can take and He knows you can endure. And you may need His help. We all do, right? To do it. But we're called to do it, right? Why? Because we're made for the Lord. We're made to serve Him. We're not made to serve ourselves, man. So yeah, man, like that's the first two verses of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1 through 2. I think I said everything I want to say with that for now. But yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So I'm doing again. I'm on a series going through the whole book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7. If you like this video, please share it to others, man. Bless others with it. We're going just be talking about marriage, remarriage, divorce, sex, all that stuff, sexual immorality, because that's what it talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and in the whole Bible. So, yeah, please subscribe to my. Let me make sure I share my screen on the platforms I can share my screen on. Um, but yeah, here goes my social media pages. I'm streaming live on my YouTube page. You can my YouTube page is Upload Past Crossroads. That's also my podcast name. You can find me on any podcast platform. My Facebook page is Sean Christopher Jenkins. That's also my LinkedIn page. I'm live on Facebook right now. And then my Twitter and Snap and Instagram is Trouble Don't Last. I'm live on there, but I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, guys. I can't share my screen on Instagram. And then my other Instagram page is by_daily_Bible. I'm live on there as well. Not sharing my screen. The Tumblr, Trouble Don't Last #1. But guys, I pray that you guys are enjoying these videos. I'm gonna, when we get through the very end of 1 Corinthians 7, closer to the end, maybe I'll do it before, but like I will tell you exactly why I'm gonna be doing more videos perfectly. I pray that God just gives me the ability just to be able to do more videos, the energy, whatever I need. Because guys, I'm doing so much. It's so hard. But yeah, you guys pray for me, man. I just pray I get more opportunities just to talk, preach the word, grow in the word, study the word, and all that stuff, and share it. That's the biggest thing. But you guys have a good one. Hope you enjoyed it. All right, peace.